The 2026 NBA draft should always be on your minds. And today we're going to tap into the electric game of the number one prospect in the country, Cameron Boozer.
You are Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Your daily podcast on the future stars of the NBA. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On NBA Draft podcast with no ceilings. And as always, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner. Make sure to visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Just want to intro myself once again. My name is Albert Ghim, here of the Locked On Network and No Ceilings. I'm here as always with my co-host Corey Tulaba. Today we kind of want to obviously get into the Cam Boozer stuff, but also introduce ourselves a little bit. Well, first off, let me ask Corey, how are you doing, brother?
Man, I'm so stoked. Obviously, we're saving the best for last here this week. You guys got to listen to Tyler and Tyler start off the week. And then you got Nathan and Maxwell as well. And again, you're saving the best for last. So I'm so excited to be a part of the Locked On team. You know, we've been in each other's periphery for a while, and we finally got a chance to link up and make it happen. And now we're talking hoops on just another platform, man. I'm excited.
Corey, I was listening to the Tylers early in the week, and they were talking about how like we've been doing this now for like 5 draft cycles, which is unbelievable to think about. And we've been around a long time. You may have seen our faces on the internet, on X, somewhere on social media, talking about the NBA draft. But that's the reason why we're here, right? Obviously, we want to respect and be thankful for the people that came before us, but we're here because we love the draft. We see ourselves as experts of the draft, and we're passionate about it. We like to have fun. We like to be entertaining. We're hoping to be engaging with you guys, both in terms of, you know, what we're doing here on podcasts, but also in the comments section, wherever. Like we're of the people for the people is kind of how we are. And so we're really excited to be here today. And like, as we talked about in the cold open today, we're talking about Cameron Boozer of Duke. And so, Corey, if you can you give our listeners a little bit of an intro in terms of who we're talking about here today, some of the essential facts or numbers, stats, whatever we need to know about Cam Boozer?
Yeah, Cam Boozer, arguably the number one player in this class. Darryn Peterson, AJ Dybantsa are the 2 other names that you're going to hear that you already have heard on this feed earlier in the week when talking about the top prospects. But there is a legitimate argument that Cam Boozer is like not only the number one player in this class, but is like kind of getting underrated as like an all-time prospect. So let me give you a little background information on Cameron Boozer, who is going to be playing at Duke next year, kind of stepping into that Cooper Flag role. Duke is listing him at 6'9", 250. He will be 18.9 years old on the night of the draft. So for reference, Cooper Flag, who everybody said was so young for a prospect, was 18 and a half years old on draft night. So only 4 months younger than Cam will be on draft night. Per Synergy, our friends, 26 games playing for Christopher Columbus High School. He averaged 22 points, 10.9 rebounds, 3.5 assists to 2.4 turnovers, 1.4 steals, and 1.5 blocks on 55, 40, 80 splits. Shot 4.4 threes a game, 6.4 free throw attempts per game, had a 61.3 effective field goal percentage, and a 66.2 true shooting percentage. Now, Albert, that's all well and good. It sounds great, right? It's amazing. But what gets underrated, and maybe not even underrated, I think it gets underrated. I'm gonna say it. Even though people talk about it, this is like the most winning player in recent memory, at least for U.S. born prospects. Okay, so here's some accolades. 2-time Mr. Basketball USA in 23 and 25. Gatorade Male Athlete of the Year in 2025. 2 times Gatorade National Player of the Year in 23 and 25. Morgan Wooden National Player of the Year in 2025. A part of the Nike Hoop Summit. McDonald's All-American Co-MVP. 2 times Florida Mr. Basketball, FIBA Under-17 World Cup MVP, FIBA Under-16 America's Championship MVP, won 4 state championships, the 2025 Chipotle National Championship, had 2 medals at the U17s and U16s. Just an unbelievably, insanely productive, winning player. And the goal, Albert, I don't know if you know this, is to win basketball games. And that is what Cam Boozer does.
Corey, I was listening to all the stats, all the numbers you gave, listening to all the accolades. You and I combined don't even come close to anything he's done, and so respect to Cam Boozer, right?
We, like Cam Boozer,
Uh-huh.
were also at the Nike Hoop Summit. We were in those gyms.
We were in the same setting, right? Yeah. So we were breathing the same air. We were walking the same path. But no, Corey, absolutely. I think with Cameron Boozer, obviously today, we're not just talking about the accolades. We're not talking about the stats. But Corey, while you were going over the stats, I could not believe some of the stats that you were rattling off. If we're just talking about even just like, okay, we're talking about his offense. It's where we're starting today. The shooting splits, unbelievable, right? For a guy his size, the position that he played, but also considering the weight that he carried as the offensive engine of that team at Columbus. Corey, something that I really want to talk about today. When we're talking about Cam Boozer, right? The main, I think the headline or the marquee that comes up for him with me in my brain was that, and I wrote this in my notes, Cam Boozer, people say like, oh, this person was a problem. This guy is a problem. For me, when I was like doing the breakdown of Cam Boozer, my takeaway point was he's an actual problem. And I wanted to get into it, Corey, because on the offense side of the ball, one of the reasons why I thought Cam Boozer is such an interesting, tantalizing prospect and why we're talking about him the way that we are as him being like the number one prospect in his class is because he presents so many problems and issues and things to think about for the opposing team's defense. And whether it's his shooting, his handling on the ball, the passing, whatever, we're going to get into that nitty gritty right now. But Corey, what I kind of want to present to you first is that I think he's a problem. There's so many layers, right, to what he presents to the defense. And so, Corey, if you can kind of get into us more of the details into what I'm talking about, Corey, and what you saw when you started doing the breakdown for Cam Boozer, because obviously we haven't watched any college tape yet, it hasn't started. But from what you've seen, talk to us a little bit about his offensive versatility and some of the problems that he's going to present as a multifaceted offensive player.
Yeah, I think if I was going to describe him, it's just dominant. Like no matter where on the floor we're talking about it, I think dominance is the way that I think of it. And the first time I ever saw him live, when he was a junior, I saw him, funnily enough, on top of an ice skating rink in a mall, in a tournament called the Throne, against, I believe it was Grayson. And if I were to pull up my first quarter scouting notes, you would think that they were scouting notes from an entire game, multiple threes, post work, playmaking ability. Then, there's defensive stuff we'll get into later, but he was blocking shots. He was taking charges. He just dominates the game as a silent assassin. And you look up and you go, man, he had 24, 17, and 7 with 3 blocks and 2 steals. Really? Like, because he does it in such an effective and efficient way. And it's almost like Tim Duncan-esque in that you don't realize just how much he's impacting the game. And specifically on offense, I think you see that in his versatility. Like, he is so strong and physical that you can give him the ball in the post and he's going to be able to turn over either shoulder. He's got good touch around the hoop. He can screen and roll and go finish above the rim. He had 40 dunks in 26 games, according to Synergy with Christopher Columbus. 17 of those dunks were in the half court. He can short roll and get to like little push shots, right? And then he can initiate ball screens. So like, not only is he able to, be the screener and then roll and do stuff out of that, he can play with the ball in his hands. Like, I think there is like a boringness because like everything he does is efficient that he doesn't get the juices flowing like Darryn Peterson or AJ Dybantsa might, but it doesn't mean that he's any less effective than those guys. And you take what he can do on the court and then you combine that with kind of his winning and you go, all right, so he can do everything. And there are very few weaknesses. Now, I think, his playmaking, he's not like Luka, where he's like manipulating the defense too much. A lot of his playmaking, when it's not like a basic pass to the roller, is it's more reactive where he's getting downhill and making kicks off collapsed defenses rather than like just using his gravity with guys like hard hedging him, which he can handle because he's so tall and strong and he doesn't panic. But I think there's an area, if you were to say he has a major improvement area, there's one glaring spot on the floor that you go, all right, he has a lot of room to grow, but he already has such a solid foundation. And I think that's his shooting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Corey, I love that. And everything that you said is so spot on just because, once again, like him being a multifaceted offensive player, he presents so many problems. And like you touched on so many things. And I think that really kind of encapsulates the type of offensive threat that he is. Like we talked about, like if you're an opposing team coach, right, and you're thinking about how I'm going to game plan for Cam Boozer, it's like the list is infinite. All the things that you have to think about. And Corey, one of the things that you kind of touched on that I want to follow up on is that yes, his passing is a little reactive, but it's rock solid. It's so good.
Totally.
He's such a selfless player that he's so interesting because he really is one of these guys where you talk about like there's some skill sets that are not really quantifiable. And one of those is like making his teammates better. He literally makes his teammates better. And a lot of that has to do with how selfless of a player he is and how willing he is to do some of the dirty work, whether it's setting good screens, attacking the offensive boards, which he's absolutely terrifying on the offensive boards, right? We're going to talk about his defensive stuff coming up real soon. But overall, Corey, the point that I want to make about Cam Boozer is he is such a selfless offensive player that it's like, he really just affects the whole game and everyone on the floor with him. And so that's really important. And really quickly, Corey, before we transition, just the thing with the shooting, Corey, like I agree with you that he needs to continue to improve as an outside shooter. Man, something that I really just kind of blew me away, though, is the confidence he has. You talked about how calm he is, Corey. I feel like that calmness comes from his supreme confidence in himself, his work ethic, and his development as a player. Dude, there was a game when they were playing against Brewster. Like, it was like middle of the game, right? Kind of semi-transition. He's a trailer, right? His brother gets him the ball at the logo, and he just pulls. Like, no hesitation at all. Fluid jumper, all net. And I'm like watching jumpers like that. And I want our listeners to understand it wasn't a one-off. He took a lot of jumpers from outside with a lot of confidence. And I think the point that I'm trying to make here, Corey, is even for your kind of like little area of improvement for him, the thing that gets me excited about him, though, is the fact that he's unafraid, that he's confident, and that he's going to continue to take a lot of them. But Corey, I know I wish we could go even deeper in his offense, but we do have to transition to the defensive side of the ball, where I think Cameron Boozer as a defender might be just as exciting as he is as an offensive player. I don't know if you guys know this, but August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. And now this is a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bowl predictions and preseason hunches. But just to give you guys some details, for just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your shot for who's going to be MVP or eyeing a long shot division winner or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. That day is your moment. And for me, I get it. We're the NBA draft guys, and your guys are going to be like, oh, what do you guys know about football? But we're sports people. And so for me, I came ready. I have a couple of bets for you guys that I think are pretty tantalizing. Now, for me, right now, all the buzz is around the Denver Broncos, right? A lot of buzz about that. Why not take Denver to be the division winners this year? But maybe you kind of parlay that with a rookie of the year pick and RJ Harvey, their rookie running back, who I think is going to see a ton of the ball, right? For MVP this year, I'm looking at Josh Allen. Maybe he comes up again. And then Lamar Jackson might be in the conversation. Super Bowl champ. Look, listen, lifelong Jets fan. It's not going to be the Jets. I'm sorry, Jets fans, if you're with me, it's not going to be us. But a lot of interesting options out there. Maybe a dark horse pick. I know there's some buzz around, like even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But look, if I had to pick, gun to my head, I'm going the Detroit Lions. I think if they had Aiden Hutchinson last year, I think they would have been really dangerous and dynamic and would have been really scary. I know they lost their coordinators, but I think Detroit's a really interesting pick. So whoever your picks may be, make sure you get them in that day. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, guys, welcome back. It's a little bit of adjustment for me and Corey, right? We're trying to do this. We're trying to keep things concise and tight for you guys. But man, Corey, getting into the defense here with Cameron Boozer, I mean, once again, multifaceted. Maybe that's just going to be like the
But
overarching
concise and
theme.
tight for him, man.
Right.
You know,
Right.
his defense just like we need to be concise and tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good, man. He's a good defender. And one of the things we always talk about, and if you've listened to us in any capacity before, you know that we really value strength and how impactful that could be. And Cam is a grown man. If you remember his dad, Carlos Boozer, you know that was a strong dude, right? Who just gobbled up rebounds, just like Cam Boozer. Now, there are differences because if you were a fan of Carlos Boozer, you know that defense wasn't the side of the ball in which he excelled. He was not a two-way guy. He was much more of an offensive player who just happened to be a monster rebounder, right? Mostly known for, give me that, hold that, screaming out. You could hear him on the screen. But Cam is so good. So you start with his rebounding where he's just gobbling up defensive rebounds and ending possessions. But then I want to know what you think about his scheme versatility, because that really stuck out to me.
Corey, for me, like, and we didn't really even get to touch on this, but like for me, he's such a fluid and coordinated big man that he's such a terror on this side of the ball as well. Because Corey, the main thing that I want to, you talk about scheme versatility. The reason why I think he's so intriguing as a scheme for versatile big is because he doesn't get panicky feet. And what I mean by that is when he gets switched onto a guard, there are times you'll see bigs, they'll get switched onto a guard, right, for whatever reason. And you kind of see the panic in their feet where they start getting a little jittery and they're starting getting worried about, beating the man to the spot or having to recover or whatever. The reason why Cam is so interesting to me is that I watched so much film of him switching. And what intrigued me, Corey, was the fact that he was so comfortable. Like there was no fear involved. And he was just so comfortable in his own skin. And he was like, oh, okay, 6'1" guard. He's going to try to move me. He's going to try to get by me. No problem. Guess what I have? I have incredible feet. I've got incredible power. I'm extremely long and I'm fast and I have great instincts. So essentially he's like, cool, I have all 5 tools. I have every tool you need in the bank to guard this guard who thinks he's going to beat me to the rim and embarrass me. And so, Corey, for me to answer your question, I just feel like that versatility piece with him is one of the inherent strengths with his game and why he's so tantalizing as a defensive prospect.
Yeah, because he can move his feet with a guard. Like if you're in a switch situation, you don't have to worry about it. But then he's strong enough to bang in the post if, there's a big man who's going to take advantage of him. Yeah, Jokic is going to work him, right? Like these monster centers, but he's going to fight, and he's going to put in the effort to at least give you a chance. Like, and that's important in the NBA now. Like a lot of times, like the Boston Celtics, right? They would play like a smaller guard on like or a forward on like a Joel Embiid, and just to give a weird look off. Like he's going to be able to kind of handle those type of situations. But then like if you're playing the Celtics and there's a Peyton Pritchard or whatever who he's switched on, like he's not going to shrivel in those situations because like you said, he's confident in his ability. Now, I do think that there are times where he gets a little jumpy when biting on pump fakes. Where I saw that numerous times where someone would give him a little pump fake on the perimeter and they were able to kind of get by him. But I do think he has really good recovery tools, because like you said, he has that feel and he has the actual physical tools with the length to kind of get back into the play there. So I just think like this is what you want out of a modern day wing. Like he's going to check Luka. He's going to check Jason Tatum, right? He's going to be able to like, in the high school games, he was guarding like Dylan Mingo, who's like a guard. Like he's just, you can place him anywhere. He was guarding AJ Dybantsa against Utah Prep. Like he's not going to shy away from matchups and you could be confident there. And, again, like on this side, he's not like boisterous. And, when he ends up like coming over from the weak side and swatting a shot or blocking off recovery, he's not going to like scream and pound his chest. He's just going to like, all right, the ball's out of bounds. Like, all right, let me get in position like for this inbound play. He just does his job day in, day out. And then, like I think he's got really good hands in the passing lanes. His positioning is really good. He'll tag a roller and then be able to like close out with choppy feet when the ball skips. He splits the difference between the wing and the corner. Like when his man is, on the weak side wing, like he's just smart, man. Like he's smart and he's good and he's impactful. And then you see that in the raw stats as well, where he's averaged, 3 stocks per game in the 26 games that Synergy has for Columbus. So just he's dominant on both ends of the floor. And we went through his accolades. Like the guy wins because he is so good at understanding the nuances of offense and defense.
Corey, there's just one thing that I kind of wanted to follow up on. You mentioned that he's not boisterous, right? He's not a flashy. Yeah. He's not a guy that's going to pound his chest and taunt the other guy. Something that we did notice in Portland, though, when we were there for the Hoop Summit that I want to address because I think it's a real strength of his. He might not be boisterous and flashy in that way, but I do think he's a really good communicator.
He talks,
as a defender.
Yes.
He talks. And it's like one of these things where he's not like super loud and screaming at guys, but he's giving clear communication to his teammates. He's calling out screens. He's calling things out. He's calling out plays. Like I just felt like, Corey, and maybe you could speak on this as well. Like I just thought that, yes, like we look at the raw skill set that he has, the measurables, the instincts, stuff like that. But also there is such an importance when it comes to being a communicator on the defensive side of the ball. And Corey, maybe you can follow up on this too. I thought he did a really good job of that in Portland. And I think there are times you can kind of see that in his film. Obviously we can't hear as much, but you can see the organization of the defense around him. But Corey, if you could talk about some of that as well.
Not only in the games, he was doing that in practice too. And specifically at Hoop Summit, right? Team USA really, really needed that. You kind of expected AJ to take on that leadership role, to be the guy who was organizing the practice and kind of like making sure that and going like, hey, I'm the leader. And I kind of felt like Cam was that guy. And I, to be honest, I thought USA's practices were pretty tough to watch and like disorganized. But like, even with that said, it felt like Cam was kind of the guy who at least was like directing guys, just even in drills, like don't go through the middle in a transition drill, right? Like go around so guys aren't running into each other. So that communication is super important. And yes, he's not like pounding his chest and talking junk to the opposition, but he is communicating and talking to his teammates. And I think that is much more important.
And Corey, although he's not taunting other people, there is a quiet confidence that he kind of carries. As the kids like to say, he's got that aura. He's aura farming while he's on the court, right? He's got this thing where like he doesn't feel like he needs to say a lot, but he's going to continue to show who he is through his play and through his presence on the court. And with that in mind, Corey, I think maybe, that confidence, that quiet confidence to him might remind us of some past NBA players or current NBA players. And so as we get into our next segment, we're going to be talking a little bit about some NBA comps, some guys that we think remind us of Cameron Boozer. Welcome back, guys. Cameron Boozer, he's a really, we went through the offense. We went through the defense, right? And we seem to like him a lot, Corey. And I think, considering you already mentioned a guy before, maybe that's one of your comps, but it's hard not to be reminded by some of the NBA greats and NBA awesomes or NBA good players in the past. And I think there are a lot of guys that come to mind for me. But Corey, wanted to kind of give you the opportunity to speak first. Who are some guys that, as you watch and you did your big breakdown of Cam Boozer, who are some guys both in the past or present or whoever that reminded you a little bit of his game?
Okay, so I think the first guy that you're going to hear about or see in articles is he has a lot of similarities to Paolo Banchero. And I think seeing him in person, seeing his strength, his physicality, the ease in which the game comes to him, there are a lot of similarities, and I agree that is a good comp. However, I think he's a hybrid of Paolo and his teammate, Franz Wagner, because one of the things that even when we were scouting Paolo during his class, there's a little bit of like Carmelo Anthony to Paolo's game, and that there is some like forcing shots and kind of doing some inefficient things to the offense that breaks the offense and just kind of muddies it up. And I don't think Cam has that. And so I think that he has like the same physicality, a lot of the same skills, ability to get buckets, rebounding, quick second jump, but he's also plays with the same kind of poise that Franz does. And both of those guys still kind of struggle as outside shooters. And like, look, Cam shot 40% from three on 4.5 attempts per game. But, he's definitely like inconsistent with his shooting. He was much better on unguarded shots than guarded shots, like 28.9% on 38 guarded attempts, 39.3% on 28 unguarded attempts, 33.3% overall on 100 catch and shoot opportunities. So like there's still a lot of improvement that he's gonna have to do with his jumper. So that kind of hybrid for modern players were two guys that I thought of. And then I also think demeanor wise, I did mention Duncan, but there's also a lot of like Kawhi Leonard in like the efficiency of his movements and how he gets to his spots. Like Kawhi has like a really tight handle, but it's not like it doesn't look like Jamal Crawford or Kyrie Irving where it's like super bendy and wiggly. So like Cam has like a little stiffness there, and I think just mentality and the way that he's able to create shots with his strength and his coordination and like shoot over guys. I think Kawhi was another guy who I kind of see a little bit of that in. And then I got a couple of 90s guys, but I want to save those for after you tell me who you think he might play like.
Corey, so for me, number one, love all the shout outs. Love everyone you called out. I think for me, and I know like I don't want to make this like a hot takey type of thing, but Corey, when we talked about Darryn Peterson, and a lot of people have brought this up with Darryn Peterson, they brought up the name Kobe Bean Bryant, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm looking at Cam Boozer and I'm like, yeah, well, I think there's a little hint of Tim Duncan. Obviously, he's not as big as Duncan. I'm not saying they're identical players, but it's like if you were to make a 2.0 version for the modern game, right? I feel like there's some real similarities there in terms of, once again, the quiet confidence, the ability to make his teammates better, the fact that he cares about making winning plays, doing the dirty work, but also having the capability of being like the offensive engine, the number one offensive option for their team, while also being selfless, being a team player, making the right pass, making the right reads. And so that's why for me, my brain kind of went to Tim Duncan. And then Corey, for me, that's why it's like the Ruckers, the Tylers talked about it earlier in the week, but there's going to be such a robust discussion about, is it going to be Darryn Peterson? Is it going to be AJ Dybantsa? Is it going to be Cameron Boozer? And the reason why is because these guys are making us think about some of the all-time greats. Yeah. And so, Corey, for me, it's like if Peterson is Kobe, and then if Boozer is Duncan, and then Dybantsa is, I don't know, Tracy McGrady, right? What is that conversation going to look like? How do we split the difference? How do we end up coming to a conclusion? And so all that to say, Corey, and you can do your 90s comp, but also wanted to ask you this too. Right now, like right this moment, who's your number one guy out of the three?
Darryn Peterson is my number one guy.
Okay.
And I can't sleep at night over it. Because I just keep looking and going, oh my God, like Cam Boozer's so good. He wins every time he steps on the floor. That has to mean something. But I do think that like the kind of shot creator that Darryn is comparatively to Cam, who I think is probably going to get underrated as a shot creator, to be perfectly honest. But how special Darryn is at it, I just think that he's the kind of guy that like you can envision winning a finals MVP. And I'm not saying that you can't see that with Cam, because I think if Cam was like the number one guy on his team and they won, like obviously he would be a finals MVP candidate. But like, I just think his shot, like Darryn's shot creation, might be, with where we're at right now in the process, is something I'm willing to kind of go out on a limb for over where Cam is. Just because I just don't think we've seen somebody in a really long time that at this point in their development has been as special as a shot creator as Darryn has. But Cam has so much special to his game too. To me, it's those two in a tier of their own, and AJ in that next tier. And if he wants to, he can make his way back up to that first tier. He's just gotta start playing harder. He's just all right, man. The lights are always on you. If you want to be special, you're getting judged every second that you're on a court, from when you put your slides on in the gym to when you take them off. And if you're in layup lines, like, play with force. And I think the other guys do that a little bit more consistently than AJ.
No, absolutely, Corey. I 100% agree with you. This is why this draft cycle is going to be ridiculously entertaining to watch. I can't wait for the college basketball season to start. And guys, next week we're going to come back and we're going to have so much more to talk about. But as always, just want to thank you guys so much for making us your first listen of the day. Next week we're going to come back. We're going to talk to you guys more about some of the top prospects in this class. My name's Albert. He's Corey. Talk to you guys soon.